This physician who in the 1970s developed this model of cancer development, his name was Dr. Carl Simonton, and he was a radiological oncologist and dealt with a lot of cancer patients. And he believed that our emotions play a role in the development of cancer. And he developed a system to reverse negative emotions.
Every time that I do a new interview, I am shocked because it's like this message is coming to me. I don't even need to look for the speakers. I was introduced by one of our speakers to another person. I never heard about him. He has a fascinating story, and he has a message that is 100% aligned with the message of the healing cancer in this century. And I just want to welcome Norm. Thank you for coming and to give this knowledge to our audience. I need to tell you that when I started the project about 2 years ago, nobody knew about what I was talking about. How emotions, how emotional trauma, stress affect our health. And after running the summit for 3 times, this is going to be the 4th time, people are understanding, they are writing emails, they are participating in energy healing sessions to heal emotions. And please, just tell me, what was your journey? How long did it take you to make the connection that your cancer, and tell a little bit our audience about your cancer, didn't have much to do with physical things?
Sure, glad to be here, thank you. I was a lobbyist. I represented clients before the California legislature. It was pretty high stress, but I had done it over a 25-year period and was kind of used to it. And then I got sick. I got thyroid cancer. I followed thyroid, papillary carcinoma. They didn't tell me. They measured the thyroid nodule for 3 years. They never said the word cancer. They never told me anything until I saw the surgeon who was going to remove my thyroid, and they needed informed consent in order to do so. That was the first time cancer was used.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but because you said that for 3 years they knew that something was not right, and you didn't know there was cancer after 3 years.
They knew. They didn't tell me. And so I followed. I had lobbied for the medical association. I knew many physicians. I represented physicians before the legislature. And so I had a great deal of trust in them and the medical model of tumor development, which consists of surgery, chemo, and radiation. In my case, I didn't need chemotherapy, only the radiation, because they use iodine that specifically targets the thyroid. And so I swallowed a radioactive iodine pill, and I followed it to the T, but not only did they not tell me I had cancer until I met with the surgeon who was going to remove my organ, they didn't tell me about a lot of stuff, a lot of things that would have been important. So I didn't make any lifestyle changes.
So did you have the surgery?
I did. I had a radical thyroidectomy and a lymph node resection. So they took 5 lymph nodes in addition to my thyroid. 6 months later, they gave me a radioactive pill to do what they call ablation. And so the thyroid is the only organ that takes up iodine. And any residual thyroid tissue then takes up that radioactive iodine, and it then decays that tissue. They don't want you to have any thyroid tissue because they believe that it will produce malignancy. Any residual thyroid tissue will produce malignancy.
So the theory is that any even little residual will develop tumor cancer.
Exactly.
So, and do you think you can eliminate every single residual?
They tried, and then anything they couldn't get with the scalpel, then they get with radiation, and it stays with you. So you're carrying radioactive material in small, trace amounts that decays any residual tissue. And the idea is that any malignancy that follows residual tissue could distally metastasize to lungs and bones. And so that's got my attention, and I've wanted to do everything that they told me to do so that it remained isolated to the thyroid and didn't go to my lungs and bones. Obviously, that's scary. So I followed them, but they didn't counsel me on any lifestyle changes. I said, how did I get this? They said, oh, a wayward dental x-ray or exposure to pesticides. You know, in the 60s when I had my first dental work, they used a lot more radiation in their x-rays than they do now, but I just accepted that as their less than satisfactory explanation.
Do you accept that now?
No.
Okay.
They made me wait 6 weeks before they put me on thyroid hormone replacement. So I became completely hypothyroid, which slowed down everything. And I didn't know, what's wrong with me. And then they put me on the thyroid hormone, and they didn't tell me that they use suppression therapy. In other words, they give you a high dose so to trick the body into not regenerating thyroid tissue. So then they took me from slow motion to fast forward, Mickey Mouse. And now and it's not like drinking coffee. It's subterranean, down in your body. My heart palpitated, I sweat, I didn't sleep, I had dark circles under my eyes. And I had to go be a lobbyist and give speeches and do these things. And suddenly now, I was an accomplished public speaker, but I stood before them and my mouth got dry and my heart jumped out of my chest. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? And I'm not sleeping at night. And I didn't make any lifestyle changes. I drank heavily. I lived the lifestyle of a lobbyist.
There was an emotional situation or lifestyle situation that make you like to drink? Or
it was part of the job. I was at cocktail parties. And it was learned behavior. It was learned behavior. Sure, it helped suppress some emotions, and it helped dull the pain and the fear. I never knew fear until I really didn't know fear even in the first round. But I made no lifestyle changes, and it came back, and I required a second round of radiation. At this point, I woke up and I said, okay, I'm not going to ride this roller coaster ride. But my ex-wife, she didn't handle this well either. She got pills prescribed for her, and she drank heavily, and she ended up, having a relationship outside our marriage with our baseball coach, and which completely, as you might imagine, upped the stakes in the emotional game for me, right? So, at any rate, I had found a friend who had gotten out of politics, and she opened a yoga studio, and she took me through therapeutic yoga for cancer. She helped me with Pilates to gain strength after, I was atrophied and emaciated. I'd been radiated twice. I made no lifestyle changes. I was drinking and not sleeping. I was stressed out, and I knew fear for the first time in my life. And so I did yoga. I learned to meditate. I learned about eating for my dosha, that I'm a pitta dosha, I'm fiery. And
the dosha is the Ayurvedic system, or is the...
It's an Ayurvedic body type, personality type.
Yeah, we have to explain.
Yes, I'm sorry. So there are 3 doshas in Ayurveda. Pitta is fire, Kapha is earth, which is kind of slow and, earthy, and then Vata is ether and airy. And so I learned to eat for my dosha, which alcohol is terrible for a pitta.
So I just want to explain. Eat for his dosha means there is a ideal way of nurture the body. So there are certain foods that are good for him, right?
Correct. And learning that helped me a lot. But even then, I regained my strength. I moved out and began to formulate a plan about how to move forward. I was fearful I was going to lose all of the material things I had. I made a lot of money as a lobbyist.
But you got your strength back and you start getting better by meditating and doing yoga? Mm-hmm. Listen, everybody. I cannot stress the importance of doing that.
Yeah. The meditation, you see, I have a very active mind. It's what made me a good lobbyist and a good researcher, and our self-talk can be harmful at times. If you don't get control of your self-talk, you can work yourself into all kinds of issues. In fact, you can make yourself sick. And so the meditation, it wasn't easy, but I learned. Today I meditate for an hour every day. And if I'm busy, I'll try and get an hour and a half.
Norman, I meditate since I was 18. I used to meditate 2 hours a day. Now, about an hour. And I do a 3 hours meditation every Sunday. And I do it not because somebody told me. I do it for the same reason that you do, for healthy reasons, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's how we get control of our own active mind, which, as we'll discuss further, plays a critical role in our health and our immune system. And so meditation was key for me. It's really the only thing that I kept doing. Yoga fell away. I got in the gym and started lifting because I wanted to feel powerful again, and I used supplements, and I did. I bulked up and I felt strong and powerful, but it was hard to maintain at the same time the aggressive nature that I needed to build muscle and lift in the gym and have a contemplative meditation practice. So it was in conflict. And I began drinking again. And I began eating rich foods, and I forgot all the things I learned. And so for perspective, I'm 6 years out from the surgery. 6 years. And so as I regained my meditation practice, I walked away from the lobbying. I walked away from politics and television and all of that represented. I don't do any of that any longer. And I went back to school and I became a hypnotherapist. Building on the discovery of the power of the mind and the subconscious and its role in our daily lives, I wanted to put myself into the service of others, and I found hypnotherapy as my path to do so, and I became certified in some medical interventions like pre and post surgery, hypnotherapy, PTSD, pain management without drugs, and cancer. I'm certified in hypnotherapy for cancer clients. But it's not enough to collect certifications and learn. You have to get people to raise their hand, right? First of all, hypnotherapy is deceptively simple, and it scares people in its simplicity. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when I interviewed Dr. Michael Beckwith, Reverend Beckwith, the head of the founder of Agape Spiritual Center, he said, if it's not simple, probably it's not the right thing. So people, we have the tendency, because we have been brainwashed by the system, that things has to have fancy equipment and things, and it's not true. So what he said, hypnotherapy is deceptive simple, is because it's good.
And it's ancient and it's sacred. And
ancient? I didn't know that was ancient.
Of course. The shaman and the healers of our ancient cultures across the world over put people in a trance to heal them.
So that trance is a form of hypnotherapy. Okay.
Yeah, hypnotherapy is trance work. And so the journey then led me to try and reach people to get them to raise their hand. And I wanted to tell my story, and so I began writing a book. And the book set out to be kind of a memoir of my journey, but in the end, my inner researcher went on a whole new discovery journey. And while the book does contain some memoir, I discovered 7 steps that most people who've healed from cancer all do. And
can you tell us?
Of course, the steps are. I really want to go to the emotion, but I'll articulate the steps, and we can discuss them in detail later. But the steps are: learn meditation, radically change your diet, deepen your spirituality, commune with your subconscious mind through hypnotherapy and your intuition. Release your repressed emotions. Take charge of your own health care. That doesn't mean don't see the doctor. That means you be in charge. And finally, have a reason to live. Don't just not want to die. Not wanting to die is a fear-based emotion, and it won't get you across the finish line.
I found it fantastic because when I interview people from all walks of life and nobody knows each other, they come up with very similar things like that. But I love this because in your system, you talk about meditation, deepen spirituality, commune with the subconscious mind through hypnotherapy and intuition. Right there, you have 3 deep spiritual reasons or practices that at the end are the foundation of all we are.
Because Absolutely, because it's the root of our power.
Exactly.
And we surrender our power when we turn ourselves over to someone who has education beyond ours. And you know what? I'm not knocking the doctors. I know many very talented physicians who are committed to their work, and they are committed to high percentage therapies that they've been taught.
But you said something crucial in an interview, a great healer, Janet von Jonsbach, and she said, when we give our power away to a method or to a person, we give the power of who we are. And this is crucial.
Absolutely, and this is the discovery that I made in writing my book. You see, writing the book, I read among the 30 books I read in my investigation. One powerful one was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps and a psychiatrist, a brilliant psychiatrist and neurologist who founded the school of logotherapy. And he said that man is inherently desirous of finding meaning. And we find meaning through someone or a work or and these things. And so I needed to understand what the meaning of my sickness was. And I found it in the writing of the book and the discovery of these 7 steps that I didn't make up. I did learn from others. I just put them together in a repeatable plan for action that I want to share with people, and that's the meaning of my life.
Yeah, but this meaning is not a selfish meaning, because your meaning was to write the book to help people.
Yes, of course, that's right. And the cancer delivered me to this meaning. Yeah. So I see it as a gift. Not everyone is ready to see cancer as a gift. I do.
See, Norman, I just sent an email to our viewers about this woman who talks about the experience, and she ended up the video, the speech is a TED Talk, that the cancer was a gift, and all these people say the same, and I am insisting on that, because when you realize that cancer is as a gift, you're learning the lesson, and then you can heal.
Learn the lesson, heal, and find your power.
And find your power.
Yeah, it's all connected to your own personal power. And that's how we push past. So I know you were interested in the role of emotions. I'll tell you, I wasn't able to understand the role of emotion in my cancer development until I understood the role of emotion in cancer development. And I read several books that pointed to this physician who in the 1970s developed this model of cancer development. His name was Dr. Carl Simonton. And he was a radiological oncologist and dealt with a lot of cancer patients. And he believed that our emotions play a role in the development of cancer. And he developed a system to reverse negative emotions.
So, Norman, a radiation oncologist came up with that conclusion because it wasn't a theory. In my opinion, I need to read that book, but tell me if I am wrong, because seeing so many patients in his practice, he came up with that conclusion, I guess.
Well, that's the conclusion that we have to arrive at, that it was through his experience that he arrived at this. And, conventional medicine scoffed at him at the time, but nevertheless, others picked up on it, and I read books by others who had learned from him, including Stephen Parkhill, who's a hypnotherapist who uses regression to help clients find their way back to that first traumatic experience that they repressed. Dr. Freud used hypnosis early in his practice, and he abandoned it for some reason, instead developing psychoanalysis. He wanted to help people arrive at their emotions in the open. I think it's a little crazy because we repress them. That's our defense mechanism. We don't want to feel the pain of our emotions, so we shove them down and we repress them. And he himself would tell you that repressed emotion is the basis of neurosis and disease.
That's right. So that's what I wanted to point out. He said it, he read my mind. Repressing emotions are cause of physical, emotional, spiritual conditions.
Of course. We can see it in its most basic manifestation in body syndromes, where if you're feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you've manifested shoulder pain. If you can't run away from your problems, you have leg pain. You see, the burden, back pain. I mean, it correlates very closely.
But Norman, why do you think that the knowledge, I never knew about this Dr. Carl Simonton, that being a radiation oncologist, discovered that the emotions played a big role in his cancer patients. Why this knowledge, 1970s, so about 40-something years ago, 47 years ago, is not passed on to other doctors or the medical community? I never heard. I work in an integrated cancer treatment for 23 years. I never heard about him or this theory.
Well, because the medical model that physicians are taught in medical school, it's surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. And they'll tell you that these are the high percentage therapies.
Norma, I need to tell something that I never said after interviewing over 70 speakers. When I was in the clinic, I had to do the rate success. Our clinic did hyperthermia, which is heat treatment, in combination with low-dose radiation, because that's the way it's approved in the US. You cannot do just heat. And the success rate of that hyperthermia treatment was close to 70-80% in 5-year survival. And I have to go to the other success rate, and surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. The standard model didn't get even to 10%. And this information is hidden.
Yeah. The research I did, the American Cancer Society, it's a 50-50 proposition. And across the worldwide population, cancer survival.
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say, yeah. I don't have any. I'll tell you what though, another great book I read was Radical Remission by Kathy Turner, who did her doctoral, she's a psychoanalyst, and she did her doctoral dissertation on Western medicine calls it spontaneous remission, right? It's when, anytime there's no therapeutic explanation. And so she studied thousands of cancer patients who either used alternative methods, Western medicine methods, yet survived a prognosis of less than 5-year survival rate, or a combination of the two. And she was the one who I first discovered. She did 9 of these processes. I kind of mixed and matched and came up with my own 7. But what she said, she interviewed the physicians in these cases, and they were able to recite brilliant physiological explanations of what changed physiologically. But when asked if they asked the patients, none of them had asked the patients. So she did.
This is crucial.
Yeah, of course. The physicians weren't interested in what the patients thought was at work, but she was. And so she articulates these things in her book, Radical Remission. Excellent book. You have to read it. She was a big teacher for me. Also, Dr. Lisa Rankin, she was motivated by reading Mind Over Medicine. She was a classically trained physician who has taken a different route because she experienced disease. And she couldn't apply her own training to getting past her own disease state. So there are emerging resources out there. But back to the emotions. So in this model, the repressed emotion festers and begins to suppress our immune system. And then I read Lawrence Rossi, Psychoneuroimmunology. It's a great book, which is Western medicine's attempt to come up with a mind-body, right? Psychoneuroimmunology. Well, it's really just mind-body. It's really it's a Western look at Eastern modalities. But he said in his book, and I quote him in mine, if you ask an endocrinologist to give you a serious answer, they'll tell you that the hypothalamus and the limbic system, under mental stress of repressed emotions, will create neurochemistry. Your neurotransmitters will develop neurohormones that speak to the pituitary, the endocrine systems, and suppress your immune system.
Oh my God.
And as we know through epigenetics, it will alter your gene expression.
And this is basic science of
It's scientific. So you know what? I pressed my endocrinologist. I asked her, and she had to agree. Yeah. Yeah, right after she wanted to give me Lipitor for my high cholesterol. She's great, I love her, but she was honest because I had done my research. And so we have a chemical explanation. We have a scientific explanation. It's all out there if you want to read it.
I wanted to ask you again, you were talking about the repressed emotions and this other, I think Stephen Parkhill that took the work of Dr. Carl Simonton. What he discovered in hypnotherapy?
He took as the assumption that there's an emotional basis. And with that assumption, he began to alter his hypnotherapy practice in order to regress people back. And what he found was, because trauma is cumulative, what he found was he could regress easily to a more recent emotional trauma. But that's not enough. You have to dig, you have to go deeper, you have to go to the initial trauma, because subsequent traumas have accumulated on top of it. And until you get at that initial trauma, you cannot get fully returned to your powerful immune system. You see, we have cancer cells, all of us do. They're mutations. Mm-hmm. And a healthy immune system zaps them, knocks them out, kills them. It's when our immune system is suppressed by some emotional trauma that we're no longer able to kill these mutations, and they grow very quickly and mutate into a tumor. And then, you see, then Western medicine wants to cut it out, poison it, and burn it.
And that doesn't work because the root cause is still there.
The emotions, they're still there, so when it comes back, so all the percentages that they'll quote you.
But Norman, I love this conversation because in energy healing, the most powerful work is when you go to the root cause, whatever it is. This is the work that I do, that I teach my students, that my friends, I have great energy healers and health practitioners. We go to the root cause, whatever it is. And the beauty that I find is that hypnotherapy goes to the same thing, and many other modalities go to the same thing, to the root cause.
That's right.
It's what I tell many times to people or clients. I said, if you have a splinter, you have an infection, you can take a pain medication, something for the infection, and the pain may subside, but it will come back, it will come back, it will come back, until you take the splinter, that is not going to heal.
That's right. It's the root cause. And in my hypnotherapy practice, I always try and go for cause. Otherwise, Parkhill talks about physicians as symptom managers.
What are those?
Symptom managers. They don't go to the root. They don't go to the root cause. They just manage your symptoms. Yeah. And after a while, where your system management gets difficult, then you just have chronic illness, and they throw up their arms, and you have chronic illness. Instead, if you go to the root cause, so a couple things. Again, Parkhill sees physicians as symptom managers. They just put Band-Aids, they give you a pill in your example, it's a fine example. They don't get to the sliver, the splinter, they don't get to it. They just give you antibiotics, they give you pain medication, they put a Band-Aid on. Deepak Chopra in Quantum Healing talks about the placebo effect. We understand the placebo effect is a sugar pill that people are given and sometimes respond to. In Western medicine, they use the placebo as a test against which all clinical trials are measured. So any new drug brought to market has to do better than the 33% success rate of a placebo. So with respect to the placebo, he says that Western medicine is taught in their ethics training that a fake pill, they don't want to prescribe a fake pill.
Because it's not ethic.
It's inert. It's a sugar or salt preparation, but Deepak Chopra argues that it is a real pill because it empowers you to put your own immune system to work, and so it is healing in and of itself, and so it's not unethical. It's not fake. It's real.
Norman, I need to tell you that during the conversation, it's the very first time with all the scientific proof that you are bringing that I see very clear, even though I knew the power of our mind, the powers of our thoughts, of our emotions, how has been scientifically proved for decades, and that knowledge is not available to the people. Because if with just stress, we affect our immune system, and that chronic stress, the immune system is chronically affected for long periods of time, we develop a disease. And it's all in this emotional realm.
Absolutely. It's your powerful subconscious. Your powerful subconscious is listening. So within my hypnotherapy practice, I draw the iceberg, right? You've seen the graphic of the iceberg. 10% is above the water. And that's your conscious mind, where logic, reason, decision-making, analysis, and willpower resides. That's what we think is in control. The part of the iceberg that's below the surface is your subconscious. That's 90%. That's where your homeostasis resides. Your heart beats, your temperature is maintained, your emotions, your intuition, all of the involuntary actions of your body resides in the powerful subconscious. And that's why we have to be careful and guard our thoughts. That's why meditation is important. That's why getting our self-talk under control, because we can talk ourselves into being sick. Yeah. We're listening. So that's where Deepak Chopra will talk about the nocebo effect. Nocebo. Yeah, it's the thing that we've all heard about in medical school, where these newly minted physicians are in medical school and they're learning about all these diseases that can befall the human body. And lo and behold, some of them get sick. They take on these maladies, or at least the symptoms of them. It's because our subconscious mind is at work, and it's called the nocebo effect. That's why we can make ourselves sick. That's why we need to guard our thoughts. That's why we have to reframe. We all have these things, oh, I'm no good, oh, I suck at that, or oh, you know, I never get that right. Guard your thoughts, reframe. You know, I've been challenged in the past by that, but I'm going to do better this time. And that's what I help clients do on a regular basis, both in the cognitive part and in hypnotherapy. Reframe. Be careful about what you're thinking.
You mentioned earlier that you said you stopped watching TV, and TV is a source of stress.
Of course. And the news, if it bleeds, it leads. They keep us in a constant state of fight or flight of your autonomic nervous system, which overworks our adrenal glands and stresses out our organs. You know, it's in modern society, we're connected 24/7 with our powerful devices. We're dumbing ourselves down. We're departing from the power of our own senses. We don't believe our five senses because we don't use them. And so as a result, you know, the subconscious mind takes in everything. All the input from your five senses goes through the subconscious mind as a filter. And then the conscious mind decides what it thinks about that. It's a 3-filter system. Your senses, your subconscious mind, and your conscious mind. And if we're in constant fight or flight, we're taking in these suggestions from the world around us. You know, the world is not as terrible as we're led to believe by the news. It's not as terrible. It's just that we get a 24/7 news cycle telling us all the bad things that are happening. And it gets us to concentrate on bad things instead of good things.
And if you could, with all the knowledge that you have and experience, if you could tell our audience 1 or 2 things they can start doing right now to improve their health, to help in their healing journey, what would you tell them?
I would make, and this is what I did for myself. So if I may as background, I found my own way to my own emotional trauma. The most recent one was I went through this thing as a lobbyist. You have to take an ethics training course every year. And I waited to the last minute, and the last one they gave I couldn't go to because I had a client representation that I had, and I went with my clients instead of the training. And I'd done it 10 years in a row, and I'd done it 10 years before as a legislative staffer. And they revoked my license, not because I was unethical, but because I didn't make it to the class. And it was highly visible, and a memo went out to the legislators that myself and several others were no longer active lobbyists because we missed the training and I wasn't allowed to lobby. And it was high stress, very emotionally traumatic. And I was able to work my way through it. I lobbied my way around it, but it took some time, and it took a toll on me. And I got sick shortly thereafter. And then I had to dig deep into, and I went back to, you know, something that I was not aware of. But when I was 10, my father moved us from the city to a ranch in the mountains, in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And it was an amazing childhood. I had horses and a 10-acre ranch with a creek and pond, and it was amazing. But my father stayed in the city and only come home on weekends. So I lost my father, but I gained a ranch. And if you'd asked me at the time, it meant nothing.
So you stay with your mother and siblings?
My brother and my mother, and I lived on a ranch, and it was wonderful. But deep down, that boy was wounded because he lost his father. My father came home on weekends, drank heavily, and he provided a wonderful, and I gave him a pass. But deep down, that little boy wanted his dad. And so I found my way to the emotional thing. So what can people do? I say, and I've written about it in my book, sit down and do an honest assessment of the powerful emotional experiences you had in your life. I've had clients, I've asked them to do a survey of their emotional traumas, and they say, no, I've had a wonderful life. I'm like, how about disappointments? Ever had a bitter disappointment? I write about a client in my book who had a bitter disappointment. After a stellar career in the motion picture industry, he fell asleep in a late night shoot, and he was fired. And this was traumatic for him. He went out, he immediately retired. And he went away from the thing he loved, and he went out on a sour note. And within months he had a rare blood cancer. Oh, yeah, he manifested it himself. So write down an inventory and be honest with yourself. What traumatic experiences have you had in your life? Be they disappointments or a terrible divorce or betrayal or these things. And be honest and be ready. You're going to bring some emotional stuff up, and let yourself cry if you need to. Change your diet. Stop eating red meat. Stop drinking alcohol. In my book, I talk about a slower step process than what I've actually done now. Since I wrote about diet, I've gone vegan, and I juice. I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. I'm without a thyroid, and I've been this little wiry guy all my life, bouncing off the walls, high energy, burning the candle at both ends. And since they took my thyroid, I've been unable to find myself and my energy. Since I've been juicing, I'm back.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic. So really look at your diet. Juicing, raw vegetables. You'd be a vegetarian if you can't make your way to vegan, but dairy and red meat are just awful. And even fish now has high levels of mercury. Our environment is it's awful. So radically change your diet. Find your way to commune with the divine. And I'm not going to tell you to be religious. I'm not going to tell you to read, although I've read widely in all of the major texts. Find your way to the divine. Wayne Dyer said, you're powerful, and at any moment you can connect with the mind of the divine. Often our pathway is through meditation. Meditation is difficult. I teach as a first step a simple meditation where you put your hand over your heart chakra and you close your eyes and you find a quiet place, and for 3 minutes you say, love, kindness, gratitude, forgiveness. And if you practice this mantra for 3 minutes every day, your life will change.
This is really amazing, and I suggest all of you to do it, because forgiveness is crucial to move out of our system all these hidden emotional traumas. Things.
Carolyn Meese, M-Y-S-S, Carolyn Meese, she says Why We Don't Heal. She wrote a book on Why We Don't Heal. You can see her YouTube, it's still on Why We Don't Heal, and she says forgiveness. And oftentimes we hold on to these things, and it's poisonous to our immune system to hold on to anger and pain. I read the Dalai Lama's Healing Anger. I read Carolyn Meese's Anatomy of the Spirit. The forgiveness is a very powerful tool. I called people and forgave them, and they weren't ready for it, and they misunderstood, and it didn't matter. I forgave them anyway.
Yeah, because
it's me.
It's healing us. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't them. It had nothing to do with them. You receive it as you will. I hope you will. I hope you will receive it positively. But it's not about you. It's about me. And so, find your way to understanding and gaining rapport with your subconscious mind. it's deep relaxation and a focus that you don't find your way to in modern society without help. And I've used it, and I've seen it change people's lives.
Oh, that was amazing. This is amazing, Norman. I learned so many things. I got much more than I expected. I want to thank Evita, our common friend, that introduced us. And how people can find you.
If I may shamelessly plug my book, it's called Take Charge of Your Cancer. And you can find on the web, takechargeofyourcancer.com. You can find me at normanplotkin.com. That's where you can reach me for hypnotherapy or for coaching to the 7 steps in the book. The book is available on Amazon October 5th. And it's powerful steps for not just cancer, but for healing in general and for living. Again, the steps are meditation, radically change your diet, deepen your spirituality, release your repressed emotions, commune with your subconscious mind, take charge of your own health care. Listen to your physicians, but you're the one with skin in the game. And finally, have a reason to live. Don't not just want to die. That's a fear-based emotion. So those are 7 powerful steps for cancer and for healing generally and living. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Norman. It was really fantastic. I never imagined we were going to have this amazing conversation. And it's a lot of great information that people can start applying right now in their healing journey. Thank you, Norman.
Thank
Give
you.
me a hug.